Epstein Island. No. Believe the science. No. 15-minute cities. No. And CBDCs. No. Gates is good. No. And GMO food. No. Big Pharma wants help. No. And government's help. No. We ain't asking anymore. We ain't asking anymore. We ain't asking anymore. We ain't asking anymore.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's rare to get me up this early in streaming, but Prairie Banana has done that. Today, we're going to talk about PTGC, UFO, all of the nice grays tech, and I hope you guys can keep up and learn a bit here. Why I'm so excited about this ecosystem. You know, it's just one of my portfolio. It's something that's in my portfolio, and I've had it. Wow, I bought gray. The original one, long time ago. I paid just hundreds of dollars. Now it's worth high five figures. So,
Yay.
Yeah, it's something like that. We've got, yeah, there we go.
There he is.
Ray 369's in the house. Welcome, sir.
What's up, Randy? How are you?
I'm doing good. Recovering from our conference. We missed you guys. We were hoping that Prairie Banana will be able to show up, but you know, life gets you. It's probably the best that he didn't come since so many of us got sick. I'm still recovering, man. It's absolutely terrible.
Yeah, I think definitely a bummer that it was missed, but you know, I think right now is a good opportunity to kind of maybe go through a lot of that information that maybe he was going to share during that conference. In general, I'm super glad that the conference went well, besides the fact that everyone got sick. It sounded like a super awesome time. I saw you guys like on a boat and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that sounds awesome.
It was a wonderful time of, just bonding. And one of the coolest parts was that about 30% of the people that came were women. So I've never been to a crypto conference with so many women, for one. Just having RG3 there in support and SJ made it special for me too, because you know I've known those guys going back to the early days of Hex, and just our community is so tight, not just the no permissions community, but the Hex community in general, and still seeing those folks grow together and mature together in crypto is really nice to see. But I do have to say that once Pulsechain launched, the maxis, they really didn't know what to do. They were kind of lost without a leader, but you guys stepped up, and I commend you for the stuff that you're building, the liquidity webs that you've built. We tried to emulate it too with the Solid X and the Solid Index, but obviously you guys are the pros at it. So I can't wait to hear what you have to say.
I appreciate you just taking the time out of your day. Like I heard you saying it's early for you, so thanks for getting up early and hanging with me and Banana.
No problem. It's not that it's early. It's just that I don't usually when I stream at night. Right. I'm a nighttime guy.
Right.
I'm the opposite of that. I'm the opposite of that.
Interesting that you mentioned women at the conference, because I don't know if you saw this post that has been going around. I can forward it to you, but it's very interesting. A lengthy post about how women are attracted to Pulsechain, and you'll have to read it because it has something to do with like women's intuition and why they would be attracted to such a chain, even though it's speculative. And I passed it around to a few women in the group. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, I could see it. We've been saying that from the early days that we had a lot of women in Hex and Pulsechain, and part of that was the leadership, with Richard, because he is so respectful of women. He is hardcore, but still he knows how to be respectful.
Yeah. His leadership has something to do with it, with attracting women.
For sure. All right. So what are you going to do today? Are you going to break down, like, are you going to do a presentation, or we're just going to chit chat?
I mean, we can just chit chat about what's been happening. I mean, Zen, if you're open to it, just chat about what's been happening over in the Grays currencies. I think it's been last summer that you two, I think it was shortly after UFO launched, you guys. I remember listening to a stream. I think it was you and Vets and Zen.
Right. Yeah. And we definitely did that. And I put all my UFO in liquidity. And holy crap, I have not seen that kind of impermanent loss of a token in my whole history of crypto. In less than 3 months, like 60% of my UFO were gone to impermanent loss. I'm like, oh man, what's going on, man? This sucks.
There's good news for that, though.
Okay.
Yes, you lost some UFO, but you did not lose your share rate that you got when you entered that pool. And your share rate remains, because it remains fixed, it guarantees you that continual drip of pulse proportional to your share of the pool.
Oh, cool.
So your share rate remains fixed. Yeah, I have experienced the same thing. Yeah, I went in pretty hard into the LP pools, and then I noticed further that the APY for holding UFO is about double. That's at least greater than LP. I'm like, well, okay, lesson learned. But I'm not touching my LPs because that share rate is precious to me.
All right. Now the other one.
That's like the interesting thing about the share rate is, Randy, I know it definitely the loss of the UFO probably hurts, but if you care about the longevity of the system and the passive income that you're earning off of that LP, not just the standard V2 fee pair allocation that you get with just PulseX, but also the PLS rewards. Now, from if you're like a week one person or somewhere along that line with UFO, what you have to remind yourself is that UFO share rate now costs anyone who wants to enter 30 times the amount to get. So yeah, you lost some of the UFO, but your UFO share rate is now worth 30 times more. And anyone who wants to get that UFO share rate will have to pay that 30 times more.
Interesting. All right. That sounds similar to Hex, kind of.
It is similar to Hex in that way. The share rate, obviously, if UFO drops in price, it then becomes discounted again. And then if UFO keeps outperforming RH tickers, it continually will become more and more and more expensive. But by you locking in that UFO share rate early, you aren't getting impermanent loss with the UFO share rate. You are getting impermanent loss with the UFO. But what that does is that incentivizes you to actually stay in the liquidity farms, because if you closed your farms right now and then opened them up a day later, your UFO share rate would be not what you got 6 months ago, right? So it actually incentivizes you to stay in the system and incentivizes you to continue to support the system with that liquidity. And then obviously you have the decision to leave, which is everyone's decision. But when you leave, like, because you locked in that 30x better share rate than today, now all the other people providing LP don't have to compete with you. So you actually gave all the other LPers a way better share rate now because an early player left the system.
Okay, very cool. Now, is that the same thing for PTGC?
It's not the same thing for PTGC, no.
Okay.
UFO shares are unique to the UFO system due to the farms. PTGC works in a similar way. You're in a pool with all the other people, but via single-sided staking. So I always like to look at UFO as, if you're like a big UFO or LP person, UFO is very, very attractive because of the PLS rewards you get for providing LP. But if you're not really a big LP person, PTGC is more single-sided staking, pretty much similar to the model that PulseX was meant to be. So when PulseX was getting built, or when we were talking about the idea there was the idea of being able to single-sided stake your Pulse X and earn additional APY on a highly deflationary asset. You know, this single-sided staking should or could still be coming out in the future. The truth is it just isn't out. So for the last year and a half, no one's been able to earn on single-sided staking in the PulseX system. It has been highly deflationary, though, which is amazing. But the PTGC system, you have been able to earn APY via single-sided staking in a highly deflationary asset, which is very much modeled off of the PulseX vision, which could still be coming.
Yeah, my PTGC, I've still had them locked. They'll be locked for a long time. It's nice seeing it go up in value. I didn't make the mistake of going, look, guys, I learned a lot over the years, and I go medium length, and I try to stay within the cycles now. So we'll see how it goes. This next cycle looks like it'll wrap up sometime this year. So hopefully everything continues to go well for the Pulsechain ecosystem. And, we could talk a little bit about what we're seeing happening right now. It looks like we're about to get a very sharp incline in the prices of PulseX and Hex and Ink and these other tokens. That does bode very well for PTGC and UFO. And Prairie Banana and I, we both really agree on the fact that if these tokens do say a 3, 4, or 5, 10x over the next 2 months, I mean, UFO and PTGC are just going to freaking fly. I think we both agree on that. All of us agree on that.
Yeah. So we have like the mechanics to look at, which kind of tell that story as well. But we also have now the previous history, which is nice about dealing with a product that's 1.5 years old, is when the product first came out, like I was telling everyone mechanically what it was designed to do, but we didn't have any previous projects to model it off of or any history within this product to model it off of. So we were kind of just predicting the future. But now we can actually predict the future based on the mechanics and by studying the past chart history. So for an example, last year around this time when Pulsechain flicked up 4x, PTGC flicked up 40x. And it's actually due to a combined amount of things. The fact that Hart's law of Pulsechain dragged it up that 4x. The fact that reflexivity is happening with all the other RH tickers. So those usually outperform the gas token of the chain. But we're also connected to those. So then we get the Hart's law effect there as well. And really the thing that really, I think, keeps pushing the system further is the fact that our utility is just the market doing what the market does. Every time the market moves up and down, we generate value off of the market, and then we bring that value to a very, very small asset. And that very small asset's a small cup, so it's easy to fill, and it's easy to keep pushing the price upwards. And then there's obviously a lot of the sustainable features backing PTGC that we've seen in the last 1,000 years of the world, like scarcity driving value, utility, the fact that we are operating on a blockchain that's technically fully decentralized. So for this system to operate and generate hundreds of thousands of dollars of value a day, if you look at a real business, then the amount of overhead that you would have to generate hundreds of thousands of dollars a day is quite a lot of overhead. So it takes away from the profit, you have middlemen, etc. In this system, the beauty of blockchain is you can actually code all of this overhead work into a contract. So we actually are working off 100% margins to where 100% of the value can actually go back to the system to continue to push the system further.
All right, very cool. Barry, did you actually want to go through and show us? Looks like you got
I was getting some slides ready.
Yeah.
So I have one slide that demonstrates the the power of the DAO, because you asked if we wanted to like talk about certain things. That is one thing I'd like to highlight. But you mentioned that did you lock PTGC, or have you merely staked it? Because there's two.
I staked and locked.
Okay. Well, at the end of this, or at some point, I want to show you actually the slide I had pulled up, but we'll actually pull up the actual calculator.
Okay.
because I want to illustrate something to you because you locked. It's
Okay.
it'll be pretty impactful, I think.
All right.
So, but I guess what we can do is we can go ahead and show where PTDC is right now with this chart. If you could pull that up. So this is PTDC in terms of WPLS. This is the weekly. And look how this token has performed, since, let's say, July, up against PLS, 3,000%.
Wow.
We touched off 1-to-1 on August 26th of last year. We reached 1-to-1 parity with Pulse. We're now at 18.7-to-1. What you guys can do, this is for the audience, is go to the PTDC WPLS chart and click on WPLS. And that's how you can look at PTDC in terms of WPLS. And that is a very impactful way to look at it. Actually, if a user had flipped PLS into PTDC this time last year, they would have 57x'd their PLS. About a 20x since August, about 57x since this time last year. We're just moving up against the network token. And worth highlighting is that the network token, as we all are aware of, is actually like 50% below SAC rate. So it's anybody's guess what the Gray's currencies, PTTC and UFO, actually, because they're both performing about the same. What those tokens are going to do when Pulse makes its move is anybody's guess. I mean, we have a history to demonstrate and perhaps guess what will happen, because last year between January and March, Pulse did about a 4x. PTDC did a 42x.
Wow.
And yeah, that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, I think for me, I did buy it it was around a year ago is when I bought my first PTGC. So, and I didn't buy much. It was because of Vets in crypto. He's the one that told me, he's like, Randy, you got to check this out. And I'm like, yeah, sure. I'll throw a couple $100 at it. I took it, staked it all and locked it up. And it's now one of the larger assets in my portfolio.
Yeah, everybody has the same problem. It's like it's an out of proportion size of our portfolios.
It's wild.
Yeah. Zen, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I obviously am super, super excited that it's been performing this well. I still believe that this is just the beginning for PTGC, like probably a lot more than people recognize, because we have to remember that this system has been designed to thrive in a volume and volatility based environment, and it actually thrives as Pulsechain becomes more successful as well, to where a lot of assets that don't have utility or sustainability, as the blockchain starts running, a lot of the value will actually move out of those assets back into the blockchain, because of the fact that they think they're up more because the dollar value is up more, but really ratio wise they're not up any more than they were a month prior, because the gas token was down, and the gas token is what's been driving the prices up. But what I've actually noticed with this asset is when the blockchain starts to pick up, it adds volume to the chain. We actually generate revenue off of volume. It adds volatility to the chain. We actually generate revenue off of volatility. So when these things start to pick up on chain, it actually turns our system on and makes it run at a more efficient rate. We just saw this in the last 5 days from the pump dot tires launch. It added volatility and volume to chain, and then that made us generate on average over $150,000 a day for the last 5 days straight, besides today, because volume slowed down a little bit today. So what we're seeing is, since Pulsechain has actually been at these lower levels, it's putting a cheaper price on our asset than it's actually valued at, because when Pulsechain revalues itself, it's going to revalue the volume on chain, it's going to revalue the volatility on chain, and it's going to revalue our liquidity web. And right now our liquidity web is roughly at $35 million. Well, what happens when Pulsechain 10x's? That will make our liquidity web at $350 million. That pretty much puts us in an upper echelon of all tokens that exist in the world. No one really has that much liquidity. And that's great for our users, right? Tons of value backing it. But what's more important is that's tons of value generating more value for our system. And how strong this is the best example is what the Dow just did in the last week. We saw that RH launched this pump.tires, and he was obviously talking about one of the tickers more than everything else. So our DAO made a decision to actually act on creating an LP pair with the most token because we're an index of what we consider the blue chips of the chain. And we want to, as new blue chips come out, make sure that we have a leg in that direction. So we spent $45,000 on that pairing at that time. Just in the last 5 days, we've completely generated enough value specifically off of that pair to completely pay ourselves back for that move, just in 5 days. And now we get to utilize that pair for the rest of existence of Pulsechain. And we get to use that revenue to go get another pair or add to our existing pairs like Hex, Pulsechain. And that just shows as the system grows and grows and grows, it actually starts operating stronger and stronger and stronger. And the fact that Pulsechain has been suppressing our system, it actually shows you that this machine has just been in idle mode and it still has a chart like this. What happens when the environment changes in our favor?
Yeah, and I'm trying to let everyone know that could happen any day.
Yeah, my honest opinion is I thought it was going to happen a few months ago. So I think it's overdue, and I think the spring has been sitting coiled up for a long time, and it could pop and it could start running up fairly quick. You can see RH is obviously making some big moves in this last week, more moves than he's made, in my opinion, in the last year and a half.
Absolutely.
Just last week, which is super, super bullish for the RH ecosystem, in my opinion. I know the price chart hasn't really shown it yet, but the fact that he's active, that he's obviously showing actions to get demand on chain, he's making actions to obviously increase the Hex value. We can't really ask for more. The SEC case could be dismissed in a matter of a couple days. He could make some even bigger moves. He could pull some tricks out of his pocket within the next week. So I think right now is definitely the time to make sure that your funds are on ships you think are going to rise with the tides, because not all ships rise with the tides. 99% of ships sink to the bottom of the ocean forever. And when this bull market runs on Pulsechain, when these tides start to rise, you're going to want to make sure you're on the right ship. Because if your ship's sinking, you better bet everyone else who's also on that ship is going to be trying to jump off board and get to the ships that aren't ASAP. And you don't want to be the one stuck on the Titanic without a lifeboat, for an example.
Absolutely. Jeez, man, you got me ready to go. I hope that this stuff resolves here in the next week or two. Looks like the bull market is getting ready to move. I'll just say a quick comment about not Pulsechain, but Bitcoin right now. Bitcoin is fighting and doing a great job of it. And that next leg up, once we get over $108,000, it's game on.
Yeah,
to get 150. So that it's happening, and with the Trump administration making the moves that they're making, I do foresee that Ethereum is going to take a run too. And when that Ethereum run happens, what does RH do with his Ethereum, and what does Pulsechain do, because it is the exact copy of Ethereum? So all this stuff is just, it's gonna be like dominoes. And I think that PTGC UFO are in the right spot to take advantage of it. Agreed.
I'd like to talk about this slide that I have down here on if you could pull this up.
Yeah.
The burning $128 million worth of PTGC. This is a slide I created actually from an idea that I got from Zen, naturally, but was going to highlight this at the conference. This is one of the slides. So the PTGC DAO, and the brilliant thing about this fee-based token being a DAO is that it gives it the ability to pivot with the market. Like earlier this week, Monday, we pivoted when RH built this meme coin factory, and we pivoted and made a pair with what was the token most, right? Yep. And that's the beauty of the DAO. It's like a boat on a lake. It can pivot wherever it needs to based on market conditions. It's not on a fixed track where it can only go forward and backwards. So, and another one of the unique features about the DAO is it could literally, we actually have the ability to burn, hypothetically, we could do it, but maybe we wouldn't, $128 million worth of PTGC in a year's time frame based on certain conditions, and send it to the dead address where it can never be recovered. It would require $10 million in volume per day, at least on average. So if the DAO takes its 2% or $200,000 a day out of that $10 million, and PTGC, the contract also burns 0.5% or $50,000. UFO burns 1% of PTGC with every transaction. That's $100,000. Yearly total would be $128 million of buy pressure sent to the dead wallet. And that just merely highlights, the ability that this DAO-based fee transaction token has. Not that it would do that, but it has that ability.
Very cool. Very cool. Pulsechain Vision's asking which whales are supporting this ecosystem. Do you know particular whales that are supporting us?
I know a few. Zen.
Yeah. I'm not going to drop any names, but currently we have this figure that we've been calling the gray whale, who has been buying very, very large chunks of PTGC and staking and locking it out 10 years.
Oh, I know who it is. Him and I go way back. Okay, cool.
Yeah. And there's also been, like, that's just one. There has been a lot of other whales accumulating as well. I really like this gray whale, though, because of the fact that he's actually been even making some of his purchases at just crucial times on the chart. Like, not even necessarily to get the ultimate best deal, but to even just as a point or as a tip of a hat to send the chart into all-time high territory. And he's been locking this stuff out 10 years, which shows that he's got a really, really large time horizon for this system. And then obviously when that whale is doing those kind of moves, other whales like to swim with other whales. It's a form of safety. And then on top of that, these whales need this $35 million of liquidity to actually swim freely in these waters. They can't be getting into small projects with this amount of money because, for one, it's not safe. They'd be making too much impact on the chart. And for two, they don't have enough liquidity for them to swim freely. So we see these whales coming in, and it's actually attracting other whales to swim with them, and they actually support each other while they're doing this. And then they're also supporting the small players as well, like the sharks or the dolphins or the fish. And this is exactly what happens in the real world too. You'll see fish swimming alongside whales all the time for safety, for security, for easier movement, for the fact that they can feed off the droppings of the whales. This is just a reoccurring thing that happens in the real world that's just happening on the blockchain as well. I did want to point out something with what Banana is showing here, and when he was talking about like the ability that we have with the DAO to pivot. And there's two things I wanted to talk about. The first one is a lot of people don't realize one of the big reasons why tokens can't do multiple cycles is because the crypto environment is constantly changing. we technically right now in this bull run don't exactly know what the next bull run is going to look like. So when you're writing code in today's day, you're writing for what you're seeing in front of your face right now, but you don't know what the environment will be like 2 years from now, 4 years from now, 6 years from now, 8 years from now. What the DAO actually gives us the ability to do, as the environment around us changes, it gives us a decentralized way to change with the environment to make sure that we're always on the cutting edge of the latest things going on. For an example, if we didn't have the DAO, RH would have came out with this pump dot funds, and we wouldn't have been able to take action instantly on creating a leg to our index with this and creating liquidity with this and generating value off of this. This is a very, very small example. Like, we have no idea what the Pulsechain environment will look like 4 years from now, honestly. If you ask anyone in Hex what they would thought Hex would look like 4 years from now, or what RH's ecosystem would look like 4 years previously, like if you went back in time, they would have never told you what it looks like today. Never. So the honest truth is, we have no idea what Pulsechain will look like 4 years from now, but we do have a tool to take advantage of whatever is thrown at us. And that's the DAO. And that makes it to where we do have the ability to evolve with the market evolving around us and go multiple cycles. The other thing I kind of wanted to point out is a lot of people like love the God whale within Hex. And I know that you were kind of around for those days when the God whale was buying up huge clips of Hex and obviously never selling them. And I think on the biggest day, it was around $2 million of Hex purchased, and he made some other decent sized purchases after that, right?
Yes.
One thing that I wanted to point at is within our system, we have a God whale in terms written in code. And it's the automatic functions in the contract. It's the buy and burn from UFO, and it's the buy and burn from the DAO. And this isn't an individual that's actually making these actions. This is code making these actions. And the code is never going to run out of money. It's going to keep buying and burning every single day for the rest of the existence of Pulsechain. And if we can get the volume up to 10 million, which is currently like a 10 to 20x from the current volume levels, which is possible with obviously Pulsechain becoming more successful, we are able to be buying and burning $128 million of PTGC yearly.
That's crazy.
If you think about what the God Will did, I think the total was around $5 million or something like that. And look at what that did for the Hex community. It did wonders. So when you kind of rewind and you ask yourself, well, what could an automatic function within a contract do for a system in the long term if it's buying and burning every single day at those higher volume amounts? It like starts to equal numbers that are almost unthinkable.
The God whale right now, which is the dead address, holds like 11.7% of the tokens, and he will never ever sell.
Yeah.
Or are we talking about PTGC?
PTDC.
Okay. All right. Wow.
Yeah. And then if you think about this, Randy, there's only 1.5% of the supply left in liquidity. So no one really, like, let's be honest, how many people in the world do you think even know Pulsechain really exists?
Oof. So small.
Like, so small. And then you go even a step further. How many of people in the world even know PTGC exists? Well, the honest truth is only 2,500 people own more than $1,000 worth of PTGC. So there's only 1.5% of the supply for the rest of the world. And that rest of the world has to compete with the DAO and the code on buying that last 1.5%.
Yeah, I'm just looking at mine. It says I have about 42 million locked up, approximately.
Nice.
And that was under $1,000 purchase.
Yeah, about this time last year.
Yeah,
that's when I got in too. End of January, early February. Wish I'd bought more.
Yeah, this happens every cycle. There's always going to be that one token that you buy that you wish you bought way more of it, right?
Yeah. You just don't know what you don't know at the time.
Yeah, I just pulled mine up on DBank real quick.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Well, I want you to show those moon math numbers. I do have another call here in 25 minutes, so
let's do it.
let's
Okay.
let's blow our minds here real quick.
Let's drop the slide down, and then
This one.
Yes. Okay. We are on the moon math. Let me get logged in. We're going to highlight 3 different types of moon math here, and one is going to be of particular interest to you, Randy, because it's the locking calculator,
Okay.
which is new to the site, but I really like it. All right. So this is lookintoptdc.com, everybody. There's a lot of free stuff on here, but it is a paid for site, $24 a month to get access to all the stuff. The locking calculator is free. And I think, Zen, you might correct me, but I think the moon math is free also.
I think the moon math is free as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at an example of how PTGC could respond to a move in Pulse. And I don't know if you guys know what an X factor is, but I'll just tell you briefly. The X factor is how much PTGC moves against the layer 1 against Pulsechain. And in the last year, it's done 57x. Since August, 20x. We're going to set it to a modest 5. Then we're going to like Randy. Let me ask you, what do you think that Pulsechain could do this cycle?
Oh, it is the layer 1, so I think we still have a 30x in us for the rest of this year.
30x. So X factor of 5. PTGC moves against Pulse 5 times what Pulse does. That's going to be a 30 times 5.
Right.
I'll just spoil it, but the calculator is going to do it for us. And we'll scroll down, and you're going to see the value of PTGC would be 150x or a 13-cent PTGC. I think that makes Randy pretty happy.
Yeah, of course. 150x from now.
Yes.
That's the crazy part. Not when I bought a year ago. 150x from now.
That's correct. And the more PTGC moves up against the layer 1, the more this number increases. And I've seen it, Randy. In the last couple of months, I've seen this number move up, and it just about blows me away. Like, keep going, PTGC. It's almost like makes me happy that Pulse is being held back or whatever happening with Pulse. Because the more we move up against it, the more that number increases. And I get.
I think as the spring coils, the X factor just coils. That's the spring that coils, and instead of a 5, maybe if the price doesn't do anything in 2 months, now you're looking at a 7 or an 8, right?
Yes. Yeah, we could let's plug in an 8 and see what happens. Well, 21-cent PTGC. And just so you know, the same would happen. You'd get the same result for UFO because we have UFO right here also, but it'd be the same number of X's for the same X factor and Pulse doing the same move.
Yeah. So my big thing on this, Randy, is a lot of people, talk about getting 100x, right, and stuff like that. And even a lot of people talk about, like, why would you go out of the gas token of the blockchain and go into an alt token of the blockchain? Well, really, it only makes sense to do that if the alt token can outperform the gas token, right? Because there's no reason to go to a less liquid environment unless there's additional X's to be made. And that's just the honest truth. But a lot of people don't understand how many extra X's you can actually make due to a sustainable system in the X multiplier. Because a lot of people didn't even realize when I started educating people on this that you multiply the two together. A lot of people just thought it was more of an addition thing, where obviously a 5x and a 10x, that's only a 15x. That's a big difference than a 5x and a 10x being a 50x. You actually are able to multiply the two together, which makes it very, very easy to actually get 100x in a very good system like this. Like, all we need to do is a 10x on PTGC and a 10x on Pulsechain, and we're sitting at 100x just from here.
Beautiful. Bring it.
Okay, let's look at some reflections. This is the reflections analytics calculator. We'll look at both PTGC and UFO on this one. We're going into experimental mode. I like to use
one thing I wanted to bring up real quick, Banana, on the reflections part. One thing I think a lot of people with UFO are overlooking is just holding it. By just holding UFO, you're earning APY just for holding, and you're earning APY off of all of the people LPing. So a lot of the bigger players within UFO are LPing their UFO because they're getting paid the PLS rewards, and they've been doing this for 6 months now, and it does not look like they're leaving. So you can actually come into the UFO ecosystem, just buy UFO, and now you're holding a really, really deflationary asset that has pretty much one of the best ratios of liquidity to market cap ratios, I believe, in all of crypto. And all of that liquidity is working for you as a UFO holder. All those people providing liquidity are paying you APY, and they're making your token more deflationary because the web that these liquidity providers are making are literally adding volume to the system, adding market makers to move the tokens, and that's making the tokens that you're holding more scarce with every single transaction. And a lot of people are kind of forgetting that aspect of it because they're focusing so much on participating in the farms and wanting to provide liquidity because they want to do something. But I think a lot of people are overthinking it, and they just need to come into the system, just hold UFO, and let all the other players that have been in the system for 6 months now, like you, Randy, just keep the liquidity there, and they'll get awesome APY, very competitive, just for holding, and it's in a highly deflationary asset that's ultimately been trending up against the gas token on chain.
Very cool.
So back to the calculator, we're going to highlight PTGC reflections at a certain level of volume, Randy. So we're going to set it to probably like $10 million in volume, network volume for a 24-hour period, and it's going to show us how much this wallet will earn on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, and all that basis. So we'll click on calculate yields, $10 million in volume, and then that would be a 16.8% APY for reflections only. And what we've found is that because we have an experimental wallet that has been locked for 1 year, the staking rewards are 165% more than just holding. 165% more than just holding. The locking rewards are 230% more than just holding. This calculator is showing you APY for holding only, 16.8%. This particular wallet is a shark, and he would earn $164,000 a year in yield for his 1 billion PTGC.
So real quick, Banana, if I'm doing quick math correct, that would put you, if you're a staker and a locker, that would put you at roughly 48% APY on a highly deflationary asset.
Shit. So you're pulling in $500,000 a year just in reflections.
And exactly, that's the goal. So what the goal of this system is give the early adopter, or even just any adopter, right? Anyone getting in right now, the ability to do X's. That's why people come to crypto. That's why they come into an asset. But if you can give them a sustainable APY, a competitive APY after they do their X's, they stay in the system. If you don't give them a sustainable APY, they go to a system that does. Because after you become wealthy, the idea is to earn value off of that value, so you no longer have to trade time for value anymore. So if you have the APY written within the code that's competitive with other products out there, and it's highly deflationary, the idea is people will come and they will stay, because now they're earning APY in these amazing assets. And they can even cash out this APY every single day, and their percentage of the APY is ever increasing still, because the supply is ever decreasing. And there isn't a product like that, I think, that currently exists.
Whoa. Okay, cool.
Okay, so let's go and look at. Are we done with the PTDC? Are we
Sure.
going to go on to UFO? Okay, so I know you got to get like at the top of the hour, Randy, or just before.
Yeah. I got another call scheduled at noon.
Okay, well, let's look at UFO, and that'll be at this. We'll do the same volume, $10 million of volume per day. And this again is reflections only. UFO cannot be staked. You can LP it. If you LP it, your tokens are out of the reflections pool. But if you hold the tokens, obviously you're earning the reflections. You're actually earning extra reflections, if I can put it that way, because the UFO tokens that are in LP aren't earning reflections. So that's why you're going to see. I think that's why we see the APY a little higher here. Does that? Zen, am I making sense on that?
Yeah, you are sharing with less people, so that's one of the reasons why it's higher. One of the main reasons the APY usually has been a little bit better with UFO is you have to realize to buy a percentage of UFO, it technically costs like 5 times cheaper, right? Because where you get your APY from is your percentage of the supply. The greater percentage of the supply you have, the greater percentage of the APY you have. And since currently UFO is in market cap roughly, 5 times cheaper, 4 times cheaper, you're going to be able to get your percentage of the supply for 4 times cheaper. And then you're going to be able to get your percentage of the APY for 4 times cheaper, technically, is how that equals out. And what you have to remember is UFO has pretty much twice as much liquidity as PTGC. So UFO has twice as much value working for the system, which is paying you. So that's why the APY actually has been a little bit better with UFO. You are only getting 1% instead of 2%. So it actually starts to even itself out due to that metric. But there is a lot of nuances. And that's kind of why I kept hitting home with, but with UFO, you can actually just hold the asset and get a really, really competitive APY with no impermanent loss.
Just holding the asset in my wallet.
Yeah, just holding the asset in your wallet. You don't even have to stake it or anything. No, you don't even need to interact with any contract besides Pulsechain to get the token. Which a lot of people love that side of it too, because it creates a really clean system of just interact with Pulsechain, take away the permissions from Pulsechain, and then just let that sit in your wallet and compound. And real quick, so just to remind you, everything that Banana is running right now is at a $10 million in volume, and you're getting these really good competitive APYs. But just to remind you, that scenario we showed you previously, Randy, at $10 million in volume daily, the system would also be buying and burning possibly $128 million of the asset itself, which would create great price appreciation to the asset you're holding. And that's not even including the APY that you're receiving in that asset. And that's what I was talking about. When Pulsechain starts to wake up, I personally believe, this is no financial advice, that no one has seen anything yet from PTGC and UFO.
We liken the Gray's currencies to a Lambo revving its engine. We haven't even put it in first gear and dropped the clutch. That's where we think we are with this ecosystem. And so on UFO, I was going to say, don't underestimate the power of the UFO. PTDC oftentimes gets a lot of the limelight, and UFO is almost like the little brother, but I wouldn't underestimate it. With the LP pools that it has, it's like a beast in the background, in my opinion.
And it's younger, it's
Yes.
one's over a year old and one's 6 months. So give it some time; it'll do just fine. And now, if you compared the two, is UFO outpacing the growth of what PTGC did in the first 6 months?
It has, but I also think that's due to our ecosystem getting more awareness recently, to where the first months of PTGC, I was obviously completely unknown. I had like 0 followers on Twitter. No one knew who I was at all. So we had to get through that time with PTGC, you know, to where UFO never had to go through that journey, because by the time UFO was launched, I kind of already had people interested in the products that I was working on. So it was a little bit different of a startup, but they've kind of ebbed and flowed with each other, actually. Like, there was a month period where UFO was completely destroying PTGC as far as price appreciation, but just in the last month, PTGC has actually been beating UFO, I think, by 2x in price appreciation. And I think that's just naturally what happens. Like, obviously, when UFO made that like 30x move in a matter of a couple months, people were in profit, right? So then those people kind of have to take their profits, and the system has to consolidate a little bit. New users have to buy those bags off of the older people, and then we build a new floor, and then we can move on to the next level. This is not just PTGC and UFO. This is any sustainable token out there.
For sure. That's pretty normal.
Yeah.
Folks are going to take profits.
So this is a UFO shark position, valued today $967,000. And at $10 million in volume per day, or average for a year, his yearly yield would be $560,000. Well, let's go to the locking calculator.
All right.
This was just built into the site a few weeks ago. What this does is it allows a user of the site to input, I believe this is free too. You can input the amount of a hypothetical unlock and your bag of PTDC, and then a hypothetical future price or current price of PTDC. And from my 1 million PTDC 10-year lock, we have figured out that at least over the last year, there has been 395 million PTDC unlocked on average per month. And I think that average is going down. It went down. It was at like 265 in January. But let's just say that somebody unlocks 395 million PTDC. Now, mind you, somebody can unlock 1 billion or more in any given month, or it could be less. We don't know. It's up to users. But when people do this is emergency unlock, and they forfeit 30% of their principal, which goes to all the other lockers. So, and then let's say you have 100 million in a 10-year lock. So you're going to garner all the emergency unlock penalties that you could possibly get for your wallet, because you're locked for 10 years. And I advocate doing multiple locks if you're going to lock that long, just in case you wanted to emergency unlock yourself. So simulated unlock 395 million, you hold 100 million in probably multiple 10-year locks. Let's say at the time, in my opinion, we're like 10x from a penny. I think a penny is easy. If we can reach a penny, I think we're going to go on to 10 cents. So I'm going to say at the time, PTDC is 10 cents. We're going to take home 100% of the locking penalties in 1 month. If this scenario happened in 1 month, this user would bring home $29,000 worth of tokens to his wallet. Now there might be a little confusion. Let me clear up some confusion. Your reflection rewards and your staking rewards that come to your wallet every single day are based on the price of the token of the day. Locking rewards are totally different. Locking rewards are based on quantity of token, not price. Price aside, you're getting a certain amount of quantity in tokens. So that's why you see a large figure there, is because it's based on the tokens that would come to your wallet, and of course at this fictitious, hopefully future price.
Yeah, Randy, one thing I'll say just truthfully, when we added the locking mechanism to PTGC, it was mainly designed as a delay of gratification aspect to it, because a lot of people like to lock away their custody, at least in a ladder form, to save themselves from themselves. Like you can see with PTGC, anyone who sold a year ago at great gains, right? I saw tons of people up 50x or whatever, and they sold, but right now they would be up 500x. So if they were a locker, they actually saved themselves from themselves, and that was the main reason why we added this locking aspect to it, was an RH teaching of delayed gratification. But oh my gosh, I've been so surprised on like the amount of APY this has been adding to the portfolios of the users. Like how many people actually early end lock is actually quite astonishing.
I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, we're going to see the same thing. That I think that's why RH just staked 50 billion hex the other day. He wants these people to, once the price does a 10x, he wants them to start early end staking, and he'll just soak up all the penalties with that 50 billion that he keeps staked.
You don't think it was a halving of the inflation of hex?
I think it was a way for, because I have some word on the street that there's certain people that are looking to start taking profits at 10 cents and early end staking at 10 cents. And this is a way for him to defend the price.
Wow. So it could be like it could be the inflation thing and the fact to absorb that that future coming out as well. Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah, there's lots of gameplay going on here. And we know Richard.
I love the gameplay. I love seeing him make moves. It makes me feel so bullish about this ecosystem, seeing him like in action.
Absolutely. Let's do it, man. But guys, I do have to get going. I thank you both for coming out today and spreading the good word of the Grays. And obviously I'm in here. My community loves it. The no permissions community, you never hear bad things spoken about the Grays. So, keep up the good work. And I look forward to see where we're going to be in 6 months.
Me too. Yeah. Thank you for having us, Randy. Really appreciate it.
All right. Cheers, gents.
Yeah. Thank you, Randy.